What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in today's video I'm going to be building the ultimate RTX 3070 gaming PC build. In this video, I'm going to run you through all of the components I chose and why, put this system together from start right through to finish before booting it up to see exactly how it performs in some of the biggest titles out there. We're talking Cyberpunk 2077, Apex Legends, Valorant, Fortnite, and many more, so stay tuned. Let's dive right into it though, after a quick ad from today's video sponsor. Ebuyer are your one-stop shop for all your PC component, hardware and peripheral needs here in the UK. With great deals on some of the latest tech, including many of the components in today's build, which I'll link below, Ebuyer have got you covered. Supercharge your setup today with Ebuyer at the links below, and make sure to subscribe to their YouTube channel, guest presented by me. Back to the video though. As usual in a GeekaWhat build video, we're going to kick things off by installing as many components into the motherboard as possible. This is NZXT's brand new N7 B550 motherboard, and this motherboard is literally crammed with features. From this really nice black plastic shrouding upon all of our PCB components that gives it an awesome design aesthetic. A white option is also available if that's more your thing, as well as support for a couple of Gen 4 NVMe drives, just at the top here, and then a little bit further down here as well. You get support for up to a Ryzen 9 5950X. We actually did that in our recent custom loop water cooling video, so make sure to check that one out in the cards section now. You've got support for 4 RAM DIMM slots for dual channel memory, Wi-Fi 6E on the rear, the latest Wi-Fi technology, and a built-in rear I/O shield. All in all, it's a really solid motherboard and will serve us well for today's build. Into the motherboard, we're going to pop in AMD's brand new Ryzen 5 5600X. This is my favourite gaming CPU on the market in 2021, full stop. And you guys have seen me use it a few times on the channel now. There's a few reasons for that. With 6 cores and 12 threads, it covers off the multi-threaded bases nicely. And fast single-threaded performance, which has finally overtaken Intel, nice work AMD, makes it a bit of a no-brainer in terms of gaming CPUs. It is a little bit more expensive than the previous gen. I see what you did there, AMD, but it is a fantastic chip, so I can't really moan too much. One thing you do need to bear in mind with Ryzen is certain memory requirements. Now, while you don't need fast 3600 MHz RAM for the system to work, you do need it to make sure you get that maximum frame rate. Going for a 3600 MHz kit can give you 20% more frame rate than running at, say, 2666 MHz. This kit here is brand new from Patriot. It's their Viper Steel RGB series. With addressable RGB up top, a dual channel 16GB design, and ultimately a really great value price point, it's a bit of a no-brainer for a system like this. As usual, I'll link all of the components mentioned today down in the description below, so if you'd like to compare pricing and availability for your next build, feel free to do so. And yes, I do appreciate just how tricky pricing and availability is in 2021, and if that's a concern, make sure to check out our recent in-stock build with in-stock components in the cards section now and down in the description below. We're going to move on and install the CPU cooler in a moment's time, but I'd recommend you do the M.2 SSD first, as this can become a bit cumbersome with a cooler installed. This is Samsung's brand new 980, not the 980 Pro, just the bog standard 980. It is only a Gen 3 NVMe SSD, but with speeds of up to 3.5 GB per second, it's going to prove a worthy choice for this build. Gen 4 SSDs are definitely worth a look if you want like 7 GB per second speeds, but at the moment, storage isn't becoming a bottleneck for games, at least not yet. So a drive like this is, in my view, the best option right now. In order to install this, we just need to remove the magnetic M.2 cover. It's not a heatsink, by the way, it literally just covers the drive off. So that's something to bear in mind if you're going for a hotter running Gen 4 drive, and slide our SSD nicely into place. Secure it down with the included standoff screw, a little something like this, and return the cover into place. Happy days. SSD nicely out the way, we can finally move on to the cooler today. And this is Cooler Master's brand new Master Air MA612 Stealth. I'm guessing this is similar to the 612P that I reviewed years ago, so check that out in the card section now. This is a pretty beefy air cooler, and when you get to this kind of price point, you may want to look at the liquid options out there as well. Some people may be wondering though, why we didn't just stick with the stock cooler. While AMD's free included stock cooler is fantastic, you are going to lose a bit of frame rate by not upgrading your cooler, as we discovered in a recent video in the cards section now. I really like it when coolers are packaged in this kind of plastic sandwich, wedged in the middle. Come on. There we go. And would you just look at that? That is a nice looking cooler. Cooler Master, you have outdone yourselves. Look at the contact plate as well. That is gorgeous. Blacked out heat pipes as well. It's not just the heatsink that's gunmetal grey. It's gorgeous. And those two included fans as well should give us plenty of pressure with a push-pull config that takes your air in one side and pulls it out the other. The installation of any CPU cooler definitely requires one of these, the included manual, as they do vary a lot on a cooler by cooler basis. I tend to look at it as a three-part process. First off is your backplate, which sits behind the motherboard and supports the weight of the cooler. The second is the screws, which fasten the backplate into place and stop it wiggling about. And the third is the cooler, which then slots on top, the heatsink and the fans, and secures nicely into place. Split it down into these three stages and it suddenly becomes a little bit easier. With the cooler eventually the right way round, our motherboard assembly is actually looking really good. I know I say this in a lot of my videos, but with those two fans on there, that blacked out aesthetic, the all black RAM, I really like the way this thing looks. And all that shrouding, hiding away our SSD, and the gubbins of the motherboard really looks quite good. We're going to be mounting it inside of Cooler Master's brand new Masterbox 540, the case that lets you game in a new light. Apparently, whatever that means. This case, though, is a standard ATX tower that comes in at a fairly reasonable price point, but has Cooler Master's awesome ARGB lighting design down both sides. It is something a little bit different, and it won't be to everybody's tastes, but I'm looking forward to building in this case. There's also one of the brand new sickle flow fans in the rear, which is significantly quieter than the previous gen case fans, so nice to see, but no fans up front, which is a bit weird. Let's go ahead and get the motherboard installed into the case with its neutral black aesthetic so we can see just how stealthy this system is going to look when it's all complete. I don't want to sound too happy with myself, but I think that combo looks absolutely amazing. And it's only going to get better with the stealthy ASUS TUF RTX 3070. Now obviously RTX stock is so difficult to come by in 2021. Whether it be silicon shortages, GPU mining or container ships stuck in canals, 2021 has not been a good year for graphics cards. But we have seen some of the biggest generational performance increases ever, at least as long as I can remember. And the 3070 is no different. With phenomenal performance at 1440p, it gives you those high frame rates you're after in some of the biggest titles out there, and we'll take a deeper delve into performance a little bit later. The ASUS TUF card is actually one of my favourite 3070s for a few reasons. You get a pretty bulky 3-fan cooler with plenty of heat dissipation without having to pay the frankly outrageous prices that something like a Strix or an MSI Supreme X would demand. The Strix and the Supreme are great cards, but the TUF is the ultimate value proposition, at least if you can find one close-ish to MSRP. The cooler looks fantastic with a dash of RGB to fit the colour scheme of today's system. In fact, I think it's gonna look absolutely amazing. Let's go ahead and get it installed, and then all we really need to do is get our build powered up. But more on that in just a second. And after far too much effort the GPU's in, I think it did interfere with some of the shrouding on this N7 motherboard. It does fit though, so just be a bit patient and you'll be okay. I'm absolutely loving that. I know I keep bigging up the aesthetic of this build, but everything does match really quite nicely. And that brings us nicely on to the final component today, the power supply. This is Cooler Master's MWE Gold 750. It's a fully modular power supply, meaning you only plug in the cables you need, with 750 watts of maximum output. From my experiences, a 650 watt unit on a 3070 is simply not enough. When the 3070 occasionally power spikes and needs that bit extra juice, 750 watts will well and truly save you, especially with our Ryzen 5600X, which is a little bit more hungry as far as CPU power consumption goes. Once we've finished plugging up the modular cables that we need, we can go ahead and slide the power supply into place before plugging up the CPU, motherboard and GPU power connectors to make sure our system has all the juice it needs. And just like that, our build is basically done. I can't wait to see how good this this system looks when it's all powered up, especially with all those RGB fans and Cooler Master's unique addressable RGB front panel. It would have been really nice to see a couple of extra RGB fans up front, but given the case is RRP, I can't be too salty about it. We will of course test all the temperatures in the performance section of today's video, but first let's boot the system up to see just how good it looks when it's all powered up in an epic glam montage. Roll the montage! Lovely stuff. Now we've seen just how good this system looks when it's all powered up, let's take a dive into the land of performance and see if its performance matches its aesthetics. We tested around 15 of the latest and most popular AAA titles to give you guys a really good picture of just how well this system stacks up. We'll be taking a deeper dive into some of these in just a moment's time, but if you'd like to see the full, unedited gaming benchmark runs of every title we tested today, subscribe to our benchmarking channel in the card section now called Benched. On your screen now as well, you'll also see some temperature testing showing the power of Cooler Master's latest air cooler with its 2-fan design, and of course the TUF cooler on our RTX 3070. Let's take a closer look at the focus titles though, as I said, and kick things off with GTA 5. I'm happy to report that at 1440p high settings we got 172 frames per second on average, with 168 and 162 for the 90 and the 99th percentile results. We also tested out Call of Duty's Black Ops Cold War and used the multiplayer zombies mode, as this is the likely scenario that most people will be playing Cold War with. Here we got 151 frames per second on average, with 144 and 138 for the 90 and the 99th percentile results. Next up then of course is Call of Duty's Warzone, the other COD out right now and arguably the more popular of the two titles. Here we tested out with the latest DLSS 2.0 technology, which is really exciting. This is of course the latest iteration of Nvidia's fancy AI-backed resolution scaler that essentially renders the game out at a slightly low resolution and uses AI to upscale it, giving you a bit more frame rate and hopefully minimal image degradation. This is followed by the next title on the list today, Apex Legends. Here at 1440p high settings, we got a staggering 190 frames per second on average, with 145 and 140 for the 90 and the 99th percentile results. We did of course use Origin's game launcher settings to disable the 140 FPS limit to take us up to the 190 mark. Talking of high frame rates though, Apex Legends isn't alone with its blistering performance, as Valorant is the next game on the list today. Here we didn't get 200 or 300 frames per second, we actually got 491 FPS on average, which is insane, with 90 and 99th percentile results in the region of 470 and 420, showing that it wasn't some crazy outlier skewing the frame rate. It really did perform at 450 FPS and above. Crazy stuff. The penultimate title and next up on the list today is Cyberpunk 2077. We might actually remove this list from the gaming benchmark lineup, so let us know in the comments if you'd prefer we kept it. Here at 1080p high settings, we got just shy of 100 FPS on average, with 59 and 57 for the 90 and the 99th percentile results. Performance wasn't amazing, and with ray tracing on, your frame rate takes a huge hit. But either way, the system can run Cyberpunk if it's a game that you guys are still digging in 2021. And that brings us on finally to the last game today, Fortnite. We tested this at 1080p competitive settings due to your guys' high demand. And here we got 246 frames per second on average, with 178 and 168 for the 90 and the 99th percentile results. And with that, that just about wraps it up for not only the gaming benchmarks portion of this video, but the whole video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a big old like rating, get subscribed. Thank you very much for watching though, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.